Hi, I'm Brad Hamilton. Welcome to my channel, Brad Explains the Law. More specifically, Brad Explains Business Law. The purpose of this channel is to explain business law concepts in plain language. Lawyers tend to have a special language that only other lawyers understand, and we have lots of terms of art in our profession that nobody else knows what they mean, so we have to explain ourselves a lot. So I and many other lawyers spend a lot of our time explaining ourselves because we can't seem to write or talk in plain language. So I'm going to try to do that with this channel. Most people think that what they see on TV is what lawyers do, and to some extent that's true for trial lawyers, but there's a whole nother part of practicing law. Actually, there's several parts of practicing law that aren't very well represented in television. Business law, transactional law, mergers and acquisitions, those are terms of legal art that I'll explain in future videos. That side of the law is about business, and it's about putting deals together, buying companies, putting contracts together, and helping people grow their businesses. Usually doesn't get much coverage on television. Well, unless you watch HBO's Succession. It's a little bit like that, but without the drama and the crazy people. Well, sometimes it's a little bit dramatic, but I'll tell some stories about those things in the future. So what I hope to do with my channel is to explain basic concepts of business law in plain language that non-lawyers can understand. We also need more diversity in the practice of law. Over the last couple of decades, the number of women lawyers has increased dramatically, but people of color remain underrepresented in the legal community. And I'm hoping that by making this information about business law available to anyone who can access it on YouTube, it will increase interest in law as a career among underrepresented communities. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself and what I do. I'm a business lawyer, sometimes called a transactional lawyer or mergers and acquisitions. Whenever I use air quotes, that's a legal term of art that I'm probably going to do another video on sometime in the future. I do business deals. I help business people, and my clients are usually entrepreneurs, business people, companies, funds, investors, business people wanting to raise money for their business or start a business or sell a business or buy a business or close a business. Oh, hey, this is a editing interception. I'm starting to drone on. Sorry about that. Here's the deal. Business lawyers, corporate lawyers, transactional lawyers, we help businesses, we help our clients form their businesses, finance their businesses, grow their businesses, buy other businesses, get investors for their businesses, and sell their businesses. It's pretty simple. This is my first video, and this is my first edit. I'm learning Shotcut editing software. So if you want to see if I can actually improve every video as I go forward, just subscribe right down there, and we'll see how it works out. Thanks. I'm also an international transactional lawyer. That means I'm a transactional lawyer, but I do deals internationally. I've been lucky enough to live not quite all over the world, but quite a few places. I've lived in Frankfurt, Germany. I've lived in Spain. I've lived in Vancouver, British Columbia. I've lived in New Zealand. And I've spent significant time, months, in places like Moscow, Shanghai, China, Beijing, London, Mongolia, and Toronto, to name a few. Those experiences are one of the reasons I decided to start this channel. Let me explain that a little bit. Part of my practice is drafting contracts. One of my primary goals when I'm drafting a contract is to make sure the language is crystal clear so that our clients don't get into disputes later about what the contract document says. So when you're doing business in other countries, other cultures, you have to spend a lot of time, you, being me, the lawyer, has to spend a lot of time explaining very clearly what this language means. And you have to be able to do it in plain language that they can understand. So I decided to start this channel to provide some information, some explanation about what business lawyers do, because you don't see as much on TV, you don't see as much in the movies. It's not because it's inherently boring, it just may be a bit less dramatic than trials and appeals and the part of the practice we know as litigation. And also, in case you have a curiosity about business law, business terms, and what the practice of business law is about, you'll have a resource here. I'm also going to tell a few stories about things that have happened to me along the way. One of the questions I often get asked is, how did I become a lawyer, and how did I become an international transactional lawyer in particular, because it sounds exciting and it's fun. And until the pandemic, you could travel around all over the place and do deals. Well, the truth is I broke my leg. So I was a ski bum. I used to race, and I was a race coach and a ski school supervisor and a ski instructor. And then I was a snowboard instructor. And along the way, I broke my leg and thought, maybe I shouldn't rely on my physical body for a career. I think I'll go to law school. So I went to law school and I graduated, and I came back. I went to the law school at the University of Kansas. I grew up in Kansas. Then I came back to Colorado to ski some more while I found a job. And then I got a job as a litigator and a trial lawyer. And I did that for a few years. One day in my office in Denver, Colorado, where I was a lawyer, I had just finished a trial. And I got back to my office and I had a stack of pink message slips. So most of you won't have any idea what I'm talking about, because before there was voicemail and mobile phones, there were pink message slips, and the receptionist would take the phone call, or your assistant would take the phone call, and they'd write down the name of the person and what time they called and whether or not you were supposed to call them back and what their message was. And I had a stack of these pink message slips. I went through the messages and I took out the ones I knew and tossed aside the ones that I didn't know. And I returned to my calls. And then later in the afternoon, I thought, wait a minute, I have to play a match on my tennis ladder, or I'm going to lose my place. Maybe one of those people who called wanted to set up a tennis match. So I got the stack of messages. I called. The first one I called was a law firm. And I thought, oh, that was a bad idea. The lawyer says, Brad, you applied for a job in Germany, and the guy's here interviewing people. Can you get over here right now? You're the last person. And fortunately, the office was right down the street. So I grabbed my briefcase and ran down the street to this lawyer's office. Now, I need to back up just a second. Back in the day, the way you found jobs for lawyers were classified ads, and there had been, and just a little ad, like a classified ad that said, a lawyer wanted to work in Germany. God, I can't remember. It didn't say a lot more than that. I can't remember everything it said, but it sounded very interesting. So I sent in my resume, and I don't know how many people they interviewed. They interviewed a group of people, but I got selected. That was the phone call. So I went to this meeting with the lawyer, and the lawyer was visiting from Canada. Being a good Canadian lawyer, he was a hockey fan. I think he'd played some hockey as well. Well, during my years as a skier, I worked for several years and became very good friends with a hockey player, professional hockey player who played many years for the Chicago Blackhawks, and had even won a Stanley Cup with the Chicago Blackhawks. And he was quite a character. So during my interview, I just told hockey stories about this professional, well, I guess they weren't hockey stories, they were skiing stories about this professional hockey player who was a bit of a wild man, and I had some great stories about him. So the interviewer liked me. So I made the final three candidates, And a couple of weeks later, the chairman of this organization from Germany was going to fly over and interview the three candidates. Among the three candidates, I was the only one who played tennis. And the chairman plays tennis. And so I got the job. So I moved off to Germany, sold my car, quit my job, moved off to Germany, didn't speak any German, didn't speak a word of German. And once a week, usually once a week, the chairman and I would go out to his tennis club, which was a very nice club, had a wonderful Italian restaurant, and we would play tennis for an hour and then go into the restaurant and lay out our papers and do some work while we had a nice Italian lunch. And that organization in Germany was a group of venture capital funds. And their primary investments were in natural resources. And they had portfolio companies, which means investments, companies that they had invested in that were located in Denver. And that's why they were looking for a young lawyer in Denver. I was only 3 years out of law school. And had been a litigator in trial practice, but part of my practice up until that time had been in natural resources. So other than hockey player stories and playing tennis, I did have some other professional skills that roughly related to the job. And that's how I became an international transactional lawyer. In future videos, I'm going to cover exciting topics like what's a corporation, what's a limited liability company. I might do what's a security, what is force majeure. And while those things might not sound particularly exciting, I promise to at least make them interesting and throw in a few stories which I hope you'll find entertaining.